1,000. And there's 45,000 deaths a year that occur from pancreatic cancer, and it's the fourth leading cause of death. Now, there's different types of, when you get into the world of oncology, there's whole lots of differences, right? You know, it's kind of like talking to chiropractors and asking them, well, how do you adjust C1? Right? There's a million different ways you could do it. And in oncology, they really start to talk about, well, where is the tumor? How big is the tumor? Did the tumor spread? Is it the primary site? They get into a lot of details. And we've all heard of stage 1, stage 2, stage 4, right? But I'd never heard of stage 4B or 4A, right? And they do exist. So it's kind of interesting how there's a terminology and a syntax on the information that's out there, specifically not just in cancer in general, but also too specifically in pancreatic cancer, using that as the example. Well, I can't even read it. It's too small. But up here, dated back last year, October 30th, it says that the CA199 for this patient was over 5,000. Pretty significant, with a whole lot of other stuff that comes with that, right? And what we need to talk about is human adaptation. So the title, which wasn't there because I didn't have a title, is really the face of human adaptation. So we could talk about these things esoterically. We could talk about the philosophy of things. We could talk about even the science of things and how, you know, we understand the subluxation and the major effects it has, but really what we're doing is what? We're talking about people, right? We're talking about a person, somebody who has far more than statistics or studies or whatever that is, right? We're talking about the face of human adaptation. So that's my guest, is going to be the face of human adaptation, Marie. So, you want to stand?
Sure.
Okay. So, I'm going to start from the beginning. I'll make it nice and easy. That way we can kind of talk about a little bit this, or talk about a little bit of all of the stuff that goes on. I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of things that really encompass a lot of, you know, to be healthy. Stephen was just talking about it. You know, get your telomeres longer. Exercise, eat right, you know, do all those good things, get adjusted. So my first question is what did you learn, Marie, about your own journey of health having been diagnosed with this? You need the mic.
My first experience was, it can't be happening. That's my first thought. And but I'm a very pragmatic person, and when you tell me something, I tend to analyze it and either accept it or not. And I did accept what they told me. The number being 5,000, I didn't even know about the 2,000. I didn't know any of it, actually. And I just said, it can't be happening. I don't accept it. And that's where I started. I mean, I'm not denying it. I understand it. But it wasn't going to be me. So I didn't care what they told me. I was going to follow procedure, or protocol as they call it. And that's where I began.
Okay. And what things had you done in your past to be healthy? Were you a healthy person? Like what kind of lifestyle? Were you like a, you know, did you smoke and drink booze and kind of
Since you didn't know my last name, I'm Italian. And Italians cook from fresh. And so eating well, exercising, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I eat very healthy. I have a program I've been following for over 30 years. It's a herbal program, and it has done amazing things for me. And I have been very blessed that it's been in my life. So this diagnosis and chiropractic adjustment has been in my life for over 30 years as well. And And I used to do electrolysis for 40 of those 30 years. And when I found out I could have carpal tunnel and surgery, yeah, we don't do surgery, forget that. So what was my alternative? And that's why I started with chiropractic, was because I found out that having very tight movements repetitively can cause you to have this injury. And so that's where my journey began with chiropractic. And I have never had an issue with having any kind of carpal tunnel. I had a severe accident 13 years ago and lost a pinky. That's very important because you pivot on that. And that was an exciting time. But again, chiropractic brought me through without, and I have to bless the Dubell family because that's where I was going. They're in my local area. And I went through the whole thing without much problem. But back to the original story, being in chiropractic led me on a journey to open my mind beyond the medical that most people believe. We've been taught to follow what the doctor says. And I started to see alternatives. And having that in my life kept me moving forward in a different journey than a lot of people. So I believe that opened the doorway for me, between chiropractic, nutrition. I've been going to a nutrition for probably 10 or 15 years, a nutritionist. And that's somebody like, I believe we're a chemistry set. And I don't think I should take any supplements without being guided by somebody who has studied it. That's my feeling. I just feel I'm not a chemist. He was a biochemist, physiologist, nutritionist. So I trusted that nutritionist to guide me. And that's what I did for a very long time.
Yeah. So were you on a lot of medication? Were you sickly? Did you have a lot of disease?
No, no, and no.
Good answer. So in the last year, obviously there's been some things that you've encountered along the way, whether it be at home by yourself in the dark moments, or things that you've done. What are some things that you've made that have made a big impact on you in the last year?
Well, I have to say, one of the biggest impacts was walking on the hot coals at the last chiropractic meeting back in the spring. I've known about people doing that, and I've always thought, like, wow, that sounds like a very interesting thing to do, but I don't know. But when I was invited to come to the lecture, and Jay was our presentation guide, him and Jay, and I was fascinated, I was energized, and I walked across the coals, and no significant issue to my feet. And I didn't ask anybody's permission, I just did it. And I was exhilarated. And that number had been significantly dropping, and after I walked on the coals, that dropped even more. Almost 200 points it went down in that month that was measured. How do you explain that? It's all in your mind.
So just take a little mini break just for a second. Again, mentioning that there's a lot of details with pancreatic cancer, and if you're going to get cancer, that's not the one you want, right? Like we know, it's like if you're going to go swimming with sharks, you don't want to go swimming with the one that's going to eat you the easiest, right? And more specifically, and this is the point, if you have a tumor in the head of the pancreas, there's procedures they can do. There's things that have been done. I've spoken to some of you about your own relatives doing what's called a Whipple procedure, stuff like that. Things that they can go ahead and that they've perfected to do. Her tumor actually happened to be in the tail of the pancreas. And it was originally measured on the 26th of last year, of October, 1.9 by 1.8 centimeters. So small, but still significant. And it was secreting this antigen, the CA199 thing that they're using as a somewhat of a measure. Don't get me wrong, this is not a diagnostic test by itself. They use it in collaboration with a CT scan and so on and so forth. But she had the most difficult cancer and one of the most difficult places and locations. It had spread to what's called the omentum. For those of you that have not taken your boards recently, do you remember what the omentum is? And there's two, right? The lesser and the greater, right? It's a very highly vascularized piece of tissue that is over the abdomen. There was lymph nodes that were involved. There were spots on her liver that were involved. So there was a pretty significant spread that was growing from this place. And we didn't go over it, but it was found pretty much accidentally. She just was complaining about some stomach pain. A friend of hers was an ultrasound or a sonogram tech and said, why don't you come in and let's just see what's going on. And it was something very simple as that. But fast forward to today where we are and to what's going on. That's my next slide, which you're not going to be able to read. So this is, again, the blood profile of the most recent one that they did, and they did this at the beginning of this month in October. Her CA199 is at 44 from 5,000. Her most recent scan, the size is now down to a 0.9 centimeters, and there is no more evidence of it being anywhere else in her body, period. So, with that, one of the last questions I have for you is, there's a lot of values that we can place on things, whether it be fortitude, courage, the ability to stand and be strong. Which values do you hold on to the most throughout this process?
In my mind, every day there's prayer. I have many people, a gigantic support system. My family has been absolutely fantastic. My friends, my electrolysis clients, and people I don't even know have been praying for me. And that God's going, who the heck is she? And I truly believe that that's a big factor. That's my first thing. But I also have done everything in my power that I could think of to do, whether it be through the medical profession, the chiropractic, the alternative. I do acupuncture, hypnosis, because I wanted to clear my brain so I don't interfere myself. And that has helped tremendously. Like I said, top of the list was talking to God, and I say to Jesus every day, come with me, you've got to handle this, because I can't do it by myself. And he's responded. I really believe that. And whatever the future holds, none of us know, but I just know that these are significant. I will always be diagnosed according to the medical profession with stage 4, but that's not me. I realized I'm a really strong person, and I don't know how else to put it, but I believe that it's in here that I believe that I am. My daughter says to me, you're going to live 15 years, and after that, I'm putting you in a home. So it's 14 years left, and I'm staying. That's how it's going to be.
So just to wrap up, obviously, You guys can guess. That's my mom. It's pretty amazing when you could be a part of a profession that looks at so many different things. And, in these kinds of groups and settings, we tend to have the experience that, it's happening out there. It's, it's the people that come to my practice that's what we're doing this for. I can no longer say that. This is the face for me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, thank you.